Hello everyone, my name is Megan Lavoda. I'm an ENFJ. This video is for those of you who feel like you are a part of the personality typology community. It's not going to be super informative to those who are maybe new to it or just curious to learn more about personality. This is me reflecting about this community that I've been a part of since 2012. I've been on the NF Geeks Facebook group. I've been in probably all of the main Facebook groups. Personality Cafe, if you guys remember that. I was in Slacks and Discords. I've laid off a little bit ever since I've created my personal Facebook group. But I've seen it all. I've seen a lot about this community, and I love this community. In a very FI style way, I really love this community. And the reason why I say FI style, even though I am an ENFJ, is that my love for it doesn't make logical sense. Honestly, there's a lot of criticism that I can have about this community, and honestly, my inferior TI and FI ignoring function in Socionics, my FI, they battle a lot, because a lot of times my TI will be like, this is ridiculous, why are you still engaging here? And I've had some issues with discernment, either not trusting my discernment or trusting people too quickly. There's just been so much from observing this community for several years. I see so many patterns of the behavior, and people don't stick around long. I know there's a few of you that maybe know me from 2012, but a lot of us don't stick around, and I want to know why that is. Why don't we stick around? Why are there so many people that are super interested in personality for a while, and then they burn out, and then they move on to something else? Why are they burnt out? So I know I felt burnt out by some of the discussions in the community. I was talking to a friend of mine who also very similarly loves this community, and we were like, why the drama? Why the let's just unpack some of the problems, And I've always said that I think that I've made several videos similarly about this. I'm not here to shame or blame anyone, because I get it, nobody's perfect here. But I've made several videos about how should you use Myers-Briggs as a tool. You should use it to open up the door of possibilities. You shouldn't use it to limit you. You shouldn't use it to limit other people. Everyone's different. A lot of these things I feel like are obvious, and especially if you're subscribed to me and even interested enough to watch this video, you probably don't need to be told that people are different. They aren't just their personality, blah, blah, blah. I get that that's obvious, but let's really think about that and be do you consciously understand that? Because I think what happens is that Myers-Briggs and Socionics is a tool to help you as an individual understand yourself as an individual, or it could be a tool to help you on an interpersonal level. Now, what I've started saying, just on my website and stuff like that, is that I want to help people through personal healing and interpersonal healing, and I believe that personality type can be a tool to achieve that. Because ultimately, when people are initially attracted to the system, I believe that that's what they're seeking. I believe that they either felt weird, why do I feel unlike the others? Or they feel why did this person hurt me? Why are we so different? There's always this sort of pull that gets people there. The pull could just be that you are curious about human nature. But not everybody that comes to this community is curious about human nature. A lot of us are curious about ourselves and our own life, and that's totally fine. But what I've seen is that those of us who are only curious because of our own life, and they will leave because they don't find what they're looking for, and they can sort of bash the community on their way out. And I think that if we can really talk about why do people come to this community to begin with, why, which I believe is that they need personal healing or interpersonal healing, how can we give that to them so that or how can there be a place for that so that people can find what they're looking for, so that they don't have a bad experience with typology. And a lot of you guys might not super be aware of what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. But there are a lot of people out there who I personally believe have a toxic relationship with personality. They will overly identify with it, or they'll overly identify other people with it. And there's sort of like this attachment there where there's an obsession there. And it's like, why am I finding myself wasting hours and hours learning about this stuff? And sometimes you can feel defeated, like, did I even find what I was looking for? Like you're wasting all this energy. And it's like, what am I seeking? And I think that if you can just ask yourself, like, what am I seeking? Sorry. And what does my heart want? Like, why does this matter to me? And like, why am I wasting so much energy on this? And it's okay to just say, oh, I have an interest. But I think that what happens is, I'm sorry if this is very rambly. I'm trying to be careful here. What happens is that when you have a need, an emotional need for personal healing or for interpersonal healing, and then you try and use the system to, like, you have to know how to use the tool. I see the system as a tool. Like, let's say it's like a knife. Like, you got to know how to hold it. You can't just like grab onto the sharp edges. Like, it is a sharp edge in the fact that it's knowledge that you could use, you know. You have to be careful with it because it is a tool, and you have to know, what am I using this tool for, and how is this helping me do something for me in order for it to help you. Like, I think that if we just are like, oh, it's my interest, and we just like dive in, those are the people that I see either getting way too close to somebody, and then that person like hurting them, or like idealizing a YouTuber and then going off and villainizing the YouTuber. It's like, you see someone as, oh, they have the answer, and then they don't have the answer because you didn't define what you were looking for. And I think I used to think that I really disliked the drama in the community because it was a bunch of people that didn't know who they were, and they didn't know what they wanted. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I also don't necessarily dislike people that don't know who they are, because that's totally fine. But here's what I think the issue is that if people have this sort of FI style, like, I don't know who I am, I don't know how to get along with people, and then you use this tool as a shortcut to understanding who you are, and as a shortcut to understanding people, that is like this sort of TE glossing over in order to make your FI feeling feel better in a way that is causing an FE harm on the group. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm just thinking about it in terms of how FI has a feeling that wants to be validated. TE is the quickest, fastest way to validate. Find any truth that you can use from the external world to validate. With sort of a lack of TI understanding of the system, that is what can actually cause the emotional unrest, drama, cliques, gatekeeping, whatever you want to call it in the community. I know I'm not a part of every Facebook group and every Discord, but I've heard stories of people literally feeling like they're in a cult, that like they've gone out, and it's like, I'm not talking specific here, but we can agree that there is some toxic behavior going on. And when groups of people come together, that's just sort of how things are. I think it's sort of like, yeah, there's this FI desire, TE finds a way to validate it, and which could cause a sort of FE emotional problem, because it's not solving the problem for people. If every individual is taking whatever they can to validate themselves, then that's just recipe for disaster and drama, even if the people have the best of intentions. And that's why I think that what I really dislike is when people use the system to slice and dice people, and slice and dice themselves in a way that eliminates critical thinking and that eliminates possibilities. And whenever people say that they don't like typology because they don't like feeling put in a box, I think that that's a valid thing. I used to not really like when people said that, because I was like, I'm not putting myself in a box. I'm understanding where I am on the map so that I can understand myself better and understand others better. And that's very true. But what you gotta admit is that some people really are putting themselves in a box. And I think what can be hard is that if you meet people in the community, you share an interest with them, it's very hard to discern who is putting themselves in a box and who is not. Who is here to grow and learn from other people and from themselves, and who is here to validate whatever caused them to come here to begin with. If you have a personal healing issue, like maybe you don't feel good enough, you can use the theory to really understand like how to be the best version of yourself. Or you can say, I'm a feeler, you guys are being mean, and or I'm a thinker and you guys are being emotional. You know, it's like, come on, like, we are all human beings here, and like, you have a responsibility to convey yourself appropriately to all kinds of people. And I think that so many of us think that it's okay to just make excuses for ourselves and shame and blame other people or judge other people that you don't know because of their type. And I think really what it is that a lot of us, since we have this feeling, we were hurt. We either don't feel like we belong, or somebody else interpersonally hurt us. When we are here to talk theory, right? And so we're processing these emotions like in the background of everything. Where like, if you were hurt by an ENFJ, then everything you hear an ENFJ say is going to either help you understand why you were hurt, or like help you or validate you that you were in the right. And like, I think that when you're viewing people that you don't know as like sort of this theoretical thought experiment, it can be very harmful in the sense that it's very hard for groups of people to get along smoothly whenever that's going on. Because, as I mentioned before, everybody is different. And it's okay to look at people through the lens of typology. I mean, I do it. I don't know how to turn it off. But we can use it to be curious about, ooh, like, I want to see who you are, and who you are can show me the functions in an entirely new way. But when I think when you view people, when you don't recognize that you have either personal healing or interpersonal healing that you need to focus on. I think subconsciously we seek ways to validate. And so that's why when we're looking at people in the real like world, like in the community, we can view them as experiments. And people aren't experiments. They are real physical people with real lives going on, with real thoughts, real feelings going on in the background, that they're more than just an ENFJ for you to learn from or an INTP for you to learn from. They are more than just this cardboard cutout of, oh, so that's what FI is. Oh, so that's what TI is. And I think that even though it can come from a good place, if you're coming from the position where you're just like picking people apart mentally and not really, you're not listening to them, is what is the issue. Is that your mind is too busy thinking through your theories that you aren't listening to the person. If you aren't listening to the person, you aren't really creating connection or understanding between you. And when there are communities of large groups of people who aren't listening to each other, then of course there's going to be drama, and that's not really anyone's fault. And the only thing that you can do to change it is to listen more and to be open more and to realize things like, just because this one INFP really hurt me, this other INFP could be my very best friend. Like, and just really, I know that a lot of you see patterns, and there are patterns, and that's why we're even talking about this. I mean, I've even made videos on my channel about like one thing annoying that NPs do. And I don't approach an NP and assume that they're going to do the same thing that another NP did. Like, I think it's very important to take each person as an individual and give them the space to reveal themselves to you. And that's really what listening really is, and what acceptance and warmth really is. And I think, yeah, like if you get a bunch of people in a room, even if that room is the internet, a Facebook group, a Discord, and they're there to talk theory, which means that they're there because they have these thought experiments in their head that pretty much they're processing their own trauma, like spouting out like whatever at you. So many people, they are just projecting whatever they haven't healed onto literally everyone. And I think it can feel like a quick fix. It can make you feel like you're in control. It can make you feel like, haha, I actually do know that FI users are selfish, and so I'm going to avoid dating an FI user because I figured out blah, blah, blah. And like, ooh, you said that, and that reminds me of what somebody else or in my life said, or like maybe you see my behavior reminds you of another ENFJ, and you're like, just, they said something else, and so you're assuming things about me. We make it a game. We make it like, oh, like, I bet you think this. Like, and there's all these assumptions going on, and we need to just create space for the fact that you might be wrong. And also, I think that we can learn better about the theory and about each other if we are open in listening to one another. But when our minds are chattering with theories and when you're treating people like an experiment, and when you're seeking ways to validate your trauma as quickly as possible, I think it causes harm. And I think that is part of my love-hate relationship with this community. I try my best to create a sort of safe environment for people to feel like they can share and that they're listened to. I do have a Facebook group that I'll link below. I don't really have an answer. This is just sort of a reflection on, I think, how people have misused the tool, and just a reminder, friendly reminder, that we are all human, and that human nature is not encompassed, like the Myers-Briggs doesn't perfectly encompass human nature in this neat little package. If people have a different value, For example, there might be two ENFJs that are perfectly healthy, perfectly great people, but if they have different values and different interests and come from different cultures, they're going to express themselves differently. And I think so many people are quick to think like, oh, well, one of them must not be an ENFJ, like which one's lying, or oh, this one's the healthy version and this one's the unhealthy version. And I think that if you can just stop being so freaking nosy about people that you don't know, and to be very frank, a lot of people, they have failed in interpersonal issues in their life, and that's why they're here to begin with. And then they are having their unhealthy interpersonal patterns playing out in the community. And I'm not trying to shame or blame anyone, but the fact is that there is a different way to process that. And I encourage everyone to really tune in and ask yourself about whatever sort of thing you might be trying to heal, and also why you're here, and also making sure that you're using the tool correctly, because I think that we can do this on autopilot and like seek validation on autopilot if you aren't really quite sure what your intention is. And I think it's harmful to people when you treat them like an experiment, even if you might be sort of numb to it, and even if the other person that you hurt is numb to it, it can create a culture where that's okay. And then it just sort of turns into this big cultural thing where even if there are good people in the community, if the culture is to not treat people like humans, that's a problem. Because I don't think anybody means to, as I've said. It's like you get a group of people that are curious about human nature, and they're theorizing and treating each other as these thought experiments. Perhaps in their personal lives, when they aren't typing people, they treat everybody like humans with full-on respect. But then once they get into the type world, they forget to treat people like humans because it's all an idea to them. And I think especially intuitives, we have to be careful of this, that people are more than just an idea. And I know that it can be hard for intuitives to think about things tangibly. And I mean, it can be hard for thinkers to think about their emotional impact. So these are just things to think about. And I love this community. And yeah, if you would like to be typed by me and my friend Crystal, who's an ENFP, our whole process for typing is actually, if you aligned with the values of everything I was saying in here, you are probably going to like the typing service that we created, because pretty much I understand that people are going to be different. And like this whole thing I talked about, this is how I approach people all the time. Like, for example, like I might really love someone of one type and really hate someone of the same type. Like, I understand sort of the nuance there with typology, that you can't take shortcuts, and I did not shortcut anything. And so yeah, I have a typing service, and I also have one-on-one mentorship available if you are interested in having me help you heal either personally or interpersonally using this tool. Like, I can help facilitate that process for you if that's something you're interested in. So thank you for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and I would love to hear some of your thoughts in the comments below.